Hey everyone, it is April 10th, and you're looking at episode 38 of At Percussion. I'm your host, Casey Cangelosi, and over there is Megan Arns.
Hello.
And this is Laura Black.
Hi.
And with us today, we have the principal timpanist of the Thailand Philharmonic. He's also the instructor of percussion at Makidon University in Thailand, and his name is Kyle Acuncius. How's it going, Kyle?
Hello, good to be here.
So you are not in Thailand at the moment, though. You're back home, is that right?
Correct. I'm originally from St. Louis area, a
Woo!
suburb outside of St. Louis in Illinois, called Highland, Illinois.
And is that how y'all know each other? Is from
Actually, I think the first time that we met was at a percussion camp at McKendree College in Lebanon, Illinois. Megan is a couple years older than me. I don't remember how old, maybe 2 or 3 years older than I am, maybe just 2 years older than I am. And we were at this same percussion camp at this small little private university in Illinois.
We were like 15 or 16 or something.
Yeah.
So crazy.
Yeah, wonderful. Hey, so for some of our listeners who maybe aren't familiar with how orchestra calendars work, how much time off do you get to come home, or do you get paid time to come home, and how's that whole thing work?
It's paid time off. So the way that our orchestra calendar works, we have the beginning of our season starting in November. November 1st, or the first week in November, is the start of our season. And then we have 1 month off in April, which is the time that I'm home now. And then we also have another month off at the end of the season in October. So it's basically full year, full calendar year, but just those 2 months are off. But the university where I teach is on a completely different schedule that's separate from the American academic system and also from the orchestra schedule in Thailand. My first semester of school is from June until the end of September. That's the first semester. Then we have October off. So those 2 months align in both of our schedules. We have October off. It's generally because it's monsoon season, it's rainy, and it's really quite miserable in October. And then the second semester starts in November and goes all the way until the end of February. And then our 3 summer months, like in America we have June, July, August, we have March, April, May, where it's just insanely hot, unbelievably hot.
Mm-hmm.
So those 3 months are off from the school. But in those 3 months, only April aligns with the orchestra. So when I go back at the end of April, I play, starting in May, I have orchestra again, but no school.
So how many years have you been timpanist there?
I've been timpanist in the position at the university for about 3.5 years. I started in August of 2012.
Yeah, cool. Can we've had a bunch of symphonic players on. We've had Ted, we've had Tom Sherwood, we've had Sean, but no one has really walked us through what their audition process was like and how they won the gig. I don't know if it's because they're sick of talking about it, or
I wouldn't doubt that.
But if you're sick of talking about it, we can veto it.
No, my situation in Thailand would be completely different from them. So eventually you'll have to get an American player that's with the American audition process and tenure process in America to talk about their experience. With Thailand and a lot of Asia, there's no such thing as tenure in the university or in the orchestra. So you're kind of at the whim of the music director or the chief conductor at the time. So when I got there, I was appointed to the teaching position at the university. So I had that and auditioned for that by interviews over Skype. And then when I got to the university, I had to wait for about 3 months to audition for the orchestra for the timpani. And I think it was a listed audition. I honestly can't remember at this point. And I don't even remember how many people auditioned for it. But I did have to go through a formal audition process. And then the next year, I had to re-audition for the position out with half the rest of the orchestra as well. I think it was just kind of like a mandatory process that you had to go through. And Seoul Philharmonic uses that same kind of process, or at least they did with their previous music director. They had to do yearly auditions, I think, or season auditions for every position.
Whoa, jeez.
Yeah.
Yeah, so job security is not really a thing here.
Right.
Oh.
But that also probably means you have to like play the piece right, and that's a nice
Yeah,
thing.
you kind of have to be on. You kind of have to be on point a lot. I mean, if you don't want to draw flack from the higher ups, yeah.
Yeah.
That's probably a good thing because I know we talk about tenured musicians and orchestras here that play
Yeah.
the music like this, and they.
Oh yeah, if you look at fourth stand violins, and you're just like,
There
why
are
are
definitely-
You're like,
why are
dude,
you doing this?
You're like,
Just
dude,
leave.
dude,
Just leave.
it's Firebird, dude.
Yeah.
How do you hate it? How do you hate it? You know, and then
There are
and then-
definitely pros and cons of this current situation. The audition process that they have here, but yeah, I mean, you can imagine all of the good things and all of the bad things that could come out of a out of a process like this.
Right.
So I imagine it's a really good experience to see because I probably people like myself, we have the American audition experience in mind and that type of goal, and that's kind of the path we're seeing. But it must be great for you to tell your American pals like there's all these other. I don't know.
is.
It probably shows you all these new pathways, right?
It's a very unique perspective to have, and yeah, coming into this gig, I didn't know anything else. I mean, we'll talk about this in a little bit, but I came into this very quickly and very suddenly, so I didn't have time to adequately prepare a lot of just mentally and culturally for this position before I moved there. It was a very fast turnover between living in America and living here, or living there.
Wow. Okay. Great. Hey, well, I didn't mention in the introduction, Ben's not with us today. He's got something. Ben's got a thing. So, hi Ben, if you bother to listen to the
Hi,
episodes.
Ben. We miss you.
Yeah.
Sure, I guess. But anyway, I thought since Ben would be without a topic today, I would take my hand at a topic, and I only am doing this because if you remember a few episodes ago, we mentioned kind of just by accident that we went to these things called the Luray Caverns about 30 minutes from Harrisonburg up the road, myself, Laurel, and Ben. And since we mentioned it, I went searching for stuff to edit in and some video to overlay and kind of explain what this thing is a little bit, and I stumbled across a lot of more interesting information. I thought, wait, this could be a whole topic, and it's pretty interesting. So if you Google what are some of the largest instruments in the world, you might run into things called the Big Carl Tuba, which is this giant, monstrous, I think, two-person manned tuba that looks, pretty big. You'll find the 5-meter drum in South Korea. It probably has a cooler name than that, but what I kept running into was the 5-meter drum in English. You might find the octabass built in 1850, which is just like a giant double bass where two guys stand on each side with a bow and move it back and forth while another dude stands on a giant ladder and fingers it. You won't find the Memphis gong chamber because those instruments just aren't that big, but if you're ever in Memphis, please go to the Memphis drum shop and beg them to let you in the Memphis gong chamber. You can also look at these online and hear these big gongs that they house there. The largest natural instrument, and certainly the largest instrument ever conceived of, is the Stalacpipe organ in the Luray Caverns. And again, it's not actually an organ. Like we said before, there is this organ console in which it is operated from. So arguably the largest instrument, certainly the largest natural instrument, is the Stalacpipe organ in the Luray Caverns. The Luray Caverns are in Luray, Virginia. They're discovered in 1878 when Andrew J. Campbell and 4 other men found a mysterious cool breeze coming up from the ground. The Stalacpipe organ is 3.5 acres and can be heard throughout the entire 64-acre cavern. So the stalagpipes in which the sounds are made spread across 3.5 acres, and you can hear it throughout. Leland Sprinkle is a mathematician and musician who created the organ between 1954 and 1956. The idea came to him supposedly when his son banged his head on a stalactite and the sound rang out. Now, if you remember, stalactites are the ones that hang from the ground. Stalagmites are the ones that grow up from the ground. I have to say that. So Eva, our geologist friend, will be proud of me, and that's about where. That's about the end of my knowledge.
One time I was walking down a sidewalk when I was a kid and walked into a parking meter and it rang out and made a sound, but My dad didn't make an organ.
You should make an organ out of it. Or better yet, make a carillon and call it an organ. Which is actually, like Laurel said in that couple episodes ago, it's actually more like a carillon because these stalagpipes are being percussed. Let's see, so where did I go? Oh yeah, so his son supposedly hit his head on the sound during a tour and it ran out. So Leland Sprinkle tested an estimated 2,000 stalactites throughout the cave before choosing which lithophones he would use. And remember, a lithophone is a percussion instrument made of rock, so it is a rock that makes a sound. Sometimes they're very flat, sometimes they're different shapes, but they tend to be rocks that ring. These lithophones are struck with mechanical rubber mallets, which are electronically triggered by the organ console. Again, that's why it's not technically an organ, it's just operated by an organ manual. Let's see, this can be operated manually or programmed, and like we said when we were there, we heard an automated recording. Let's see here. The custom organ console was built by Klon Organ Supply Company of Waynesboro, Virginia. It originally had draw knobs for effects pedal, harmonic, solo, and echo. These settings changed only the output to the amplifier and the information that was sent to the amplifier, not actually changing how the pipes were percussed by the mechanical triggers. This feature was removed in favor of a simpler and more balanced dynamic aesthetic from note to note, and to bring out the true nature of the stalactites, because that's kind of the whole point. The organ's mechanics, though simple and unintrusive, must be constantly cared for to prevent corrosion due to the very high moisture content of the cave. So the instrument itself is a great introduction and demonstration of what I've stumbled upon called Archeoacoustics, which is a method of acoustical study within archaeology. Archaeologists, often working collaboratively alongside acousticians and ethnomusicologists, study the acoustic properties of ancient environments and artifacts. Extensive research has been done this way on very famous archaeological sites, including Stonehenge. And the one I kept running into was Stonehenge while looking at this, because the lithographs are the prominent thing. Or, excuse me, lithophones are the prominent thing. What's a lithograph? What is that?
Is it a cave drawing?
Yeah, right, yeah. Let's see. So they explore how sounds and resonant spaces may have influenced ancient arts and cultures. Researchers like Stephen Waller suggest that our ancestors were awed and inspired by the majestic and otherworldly sounds of both the lithophones themselves and the natural acoustic spaces. Studies suggest how these sounds may have provided a basis for our ancestors' art and creations. Some artistic creations we commonly talk about even here on the show, such as John Cage's Branches, we talked about with Bill Kahn, and Steve Reich's City Life, or even Antheil's Ballet Mécanique. And even now, today, we're talking about the Stalacpipe organ created by Leland Sprinkle. These are all living proof that sound environment does influence art, culture, and creation. These ideas, research, and other methodological approaches like archeoacoustics tie in closely with the broader interdisciplinary field of music archaeology. So I thought that this was such an interesting thing that I should really expand on it. And Megan, I'm glad you were able to attend, even though only by cell phone.
I know.
Yeah.
You really experienced the acoustic properties of that cave, but at least my picture is there. That's really cool. I was just thinking, Rob and I went on a hike yesterday here in Columbia, and we went to this park called Rockbridge State Park, and there's a bridge there. It's called the Rock Bridge, and it's basically a large rock structure, and part of it that had collapsed due to water running through there, trickling through there for over a long period of time. And it's cool because now you can walk underneath it. And, I was thinking about how cool, I was thinking of programming, what would be cool to program, what percussion music would be great to program in that space, because it was pretty easy to access, actually, from the road.
Mm-hmm.
And, getting down there, there's been some man-made steps that have been built down there. It'd actually be pretty easy to get drums down there. And as long as it hadn't rained a lot recently, it would be possible. So I was thinking about that, just bringing instruments into spaces like that, in addition to exploring instruments that are naturally have natural properties like you're talking about. But
You know how those Zoom recorders have the like the XY microphone and the shotgun mic, and they have all the different attachments? I would love one of those that hooks into my phone and into a recording app, because there's so many times where I've never. We've actually talked about this on the show before, how I'm just not crazy about hiking, but there's so many sounds you run into, and I don't want to go there and perform, but I always want to record it. I like want to take it with me and use it in a tape piece or something, you know.
Yeah, Third Coast just did this really cool project with Glenn Kochi, where called Wild Sound, where I won't explain the whole piece, but Glenn collected field recordings from his travels over the course of a year, and that made it into the piece. I thought that was such a cool way to do
cool.
almost do like an audio journal of your experiences traveling.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've always thought that to be an interesting academic discipline as well. Ecomusicology. Do you guys know anything about ecomusicology?
No.
No.
I don't know much about it. I just Wikipedia'd it because I was interested in the definition. But it's an academic discipline concerned with the study of music, culture, and nature, and considers musical and sonic issues, both textual and performative, related to ecology and the natural environment. It is in essence a mixture of eco-criticism and musicology in Charles Seeger's holistic definition. I thought that was interesting. I have a grad student here who's interested in that and went to a ecomusicology, I believe, conference, some kind of eco conference in Asheville, North Carolina last year. But I think it's an interesting field that we don't know a whole lot about, but it seems like there'd be a lot of really interesting things to explore.
Yeah, especially for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
Well, you know, talking about these pathways and like the American audition ladder, and then maybe these other ones that exist slightly differently, just the whole ethnomusicology thing and this whole archeoacoustics thing just makes me think like, man, I wish some of these career paths were a little more, the steps in the ladder were a little more spelled out, and it was easy to see them, because it's like Bill Kahn said, it used to be you wanted an orchestra job, you did A, B, C, D, and you got it. As long as you did all those, you got it. And it doesn't mean it was easy, but at least the steps were there. It just seems like we keep running into all these really, really cool things, but it's very hard to like lay out the steps for people who might be interested in them.
Right.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. You know, speaking of I guess that kind of thing, one of our Facebook questions for Kyle was from my friend Robbie Garza. He says, do you prepare and study your parts and scores differently with new music compared to the more standard orchestral repertoire?
Yeah, and one of the interesting things about the orchestra that I play in is we do a significant amount of new music. Like, American orchestras do quite a bit, at least the larger orchestras, but we have probably one of the most unique performance experiences that I've had is that every week we have a traditional Thai melody arranged for full orchestra, and that's kind of like our overture every week. You know, you can imagine that getting a little tedious after the course of one season, but it does kind of keep you on your toes, and that we really don't practice or prepare these things like I do the symphonic literature or more standard things. It's kind of like on the fly, and so, you know, what you come to expect with these, I mean, it's the same composer, same arranger every time, so you begin to kind of pick up on his tendencies and things like that. But I think it's the same with new music that I would play in. Let's see how to explain this. I think it would be the same if it wasn't the same composer every time. You know, I'm looking for things that I can latch onto, especially because time is extremely scarce. You know, so the standard rep, I hope that I don't have to spend as much time. I feel that a lot of the score study, audio study, things like that can be done very quickly. You know, after doing it week by week, the same kind of process. With new music, you know, I have to immediately just glance at the piece and try to pick up on some type of theme or some type of, I guess, motive that I can just kind of exploit.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, you got to kind of find what's happening, whereas the standard rep, we've had all this training and like, hey, here's what's happening, so here's what you do. It's like, okay, I need to apply that same template to this thing I don't know, right?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, great. Well, okay, here's like a pretty straightforward question. Toby Grace wants to know, what do you look for in your choice of timpani mallets?
Um, with timpani mallets, you know, I went through an interesting school of study. So my undergrad was with John Beck at Eastman. It was before Michael Burrett was there. So John Beck was the timpanist in the Rochester Philharmonic for a long time. You know, he had his very own unique set of mallets, carbon fiber, um, huge honking grips on those things, hollow, um, pretty full sonorous tone from those things. I went to Indiana, studied with John Tafoya. You know, he had his own background from, you know, Rick Holmes in St. Louis, so he used a lot of the Grover mallets, the Holmes mallets, slightly heavier bamboo. Now he has his own kind of line of those things. On the side, I was studying with Tim Adams at Brevard, so again, a Cleveland player with lighter, clearer type sounding mallets. And then one of the interesting things was that point around 2002 or 2003 when Marcus Roten got to New York, and the whole scene kind of changed from this either American New York, Cleveland style to having this European aspect thrown in there. And I've kind of grasped onto that now more than I have kept with a lot of other styles. You know, we have Joe Pereira in LA, you have Marcus in New York. You have a lot of American players getting more informed about European type players. So now I prefer thinner bamboo, 10 millimeter, 9 millimeter bamboo, with the grips on the back. You know, you've seen them with JG mallets, the green grips on the back. You've seen them with Kato mallets and the red grips on the back. I find for me, those mallets give me the sound that I want for my orchestra and my hall. But I think that's probably the bottom line is any timpanist that's playing has hundreds, if not thousands, of mallets that they've accumulated over a lifetime. And you never know when you're going to need that certain sound, especially in an orchestra. You know, you want to have the correct quality, you want to have the correct timbre for that special situation. And so we're no longer looking at mallets that are going to be just soft, medium soft, hard, you know, something like that. We're looking for these fine-tuned notches in between, like somewhat slightly hard to somewhat slightly hard, not as hard as that other one that's slightly harder. Yeah. You know, very, very minute situations. So I think that's kind of what I go for now. I don't have a certain type of mallet that I go for, but I love sounds. I love characteristics, and I love being able to express that one thing that's kind of like rambling around in my head for that one note that I want.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, great.
Do you have any problem, like living internationally from, I mean, maybe you get some mallets from Europe as well, but do you and your students, where do you order things from? Are there huge international shipping costs? How do you deal with that?
Oh man, that's a great question. I'm sure you ran into this to Jordan too.
Yeah.
I mean, we used to order from Steve Weiss. It's very strange, but like even in Thailand, but we can't order as frequently and as much as we would like to. We can't like order things like, I think I want to try that mallet out, or I think I want to try out this tambourine, because you immediately know that that's adding $20 or $30 onto your shipping cost.
Yeah.
So like as a studio, you know, we will do like 2 or 3 big orders throughout the course of the year. And again, if people travel to America or something, they bring back sticks and things that other students have requested. But the shipping costs alone, if you're trying to order for yourself, are just horrible. I mean, not to say that it's overly priced, but I mean, just the reality of it is just shipping is a lot to get over here. There are other companies like Japan Percussion Center and other kind of artisan craft makers that that you can get custom timpani mallets from in Asia and other parts of Europe.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, for the most of our stuff, it's ordered from Steve Weiss.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Are any of your students international students, or are they all Thai?
All my students are Thai. We do have an international program, but right now it's all Thai students for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, my friend Josh Franz wants to know, is there a language barrier for you over there?
Yeah, there is, and there always will be. So when I got the job again, I didn't know what to expect. So all the students are Thai that I teach. All of them have had some English training. they all take English courses in school from a young age, most of them. But, for anybody who's gone through a foreign language course through grade school or high school knows that a lot of that isn't retained unless you're using it every day. The teacher before me was Thai, so they didn't use English on a daily basis like a lot of the other faculty and student relationships in our college. So when I got there, this was their first kind of using English everyday situation that they were thrown into. And some of them, were conversational when I got there, but others, they have a very limited vocabulary. So my teaching style changed drastically. We're taught to use our words and try to express ourselves without having to play everything, demonstrate everything. That just isn't possible with the situation that I have. So sometimes if they're not able to understand completely what you're trying to say, you have to demonstrate for them exactly what you want, and then they can kind of figure out and piece together things. And that goes both ways. Living in another country where I don't speak the language, just the most basic tasks like getting a taxi from one place to another, ordering at a restaurant, you come up with kind of like a game plan going into it, like what you want to order, what you want to say, you kind of say that. If there's any deviation from this path, you might be in trouble.
Have you picked up on the language at all? If you've been there a few years?
A little bit, yeah. I studied briefly for like 6 or 8 months, and a lot of that stayed, but I don't speak Thai fluently at all. I mean, hardly any of the faculty members do at our university. Bangkok is laid out in such a way that it's such a metropolitan city that you can really get by without having to speak it on a daily basis. I understand a lot more Thai than I can say, but the grammar is organized in such a way that it's very hard for my mind to come up with a coherent sentence, like on the fly. Mm-hmm. And we all wish that we had more time to practice and do those kind of things, but our job, we just have not that much free time.
Are most of the other teachers in the university American or international?
In the College of Music, I would say that there is probably a 60 to 70% international faculty percentage. It's a lot, and it's just kind of the way that the university was the vision of our dean, I guess, is the best way to put it. He was a Thai that was educated in America, got his doctorate in America, kind of came back and wanted to reform Thai education. So what he knew from studying America was kind of what he wanted. So he brought in people from America and people from Europe to kind of help him with what he believed in. There are Thai teachers, though, definitely. I mean, a lot of our faculty are Thai.
And is the college tied to an academic institution as well, or is it an independent?
Yeah, the university. So we are the College of Music, and so just like in America, we have different facilities. We have like our faculties, the Faculty of Law, the Faculty of Medicine, so on. In Thailand, we have colleges. So we are the College of Music. We have a College of Industrial Studies, College of Medicine, College of Veterinary Studies. It's primarily a medical research university. Yeah, so Mahidol is the name of the university, and the College of Music is our kind of like sect that I teach in.
Do you use the language barrier to get out of stuff you don't want to do? Like you got to be on a committee, and you're like, committee?
Yeah.
What is?
Not as much as I would hope I could get away with, but sometimes it's very convenient to use the language as an excuse. What's also funny is that since I am Asian, I immediately get approached that I can speak Thai. It's kind of frustrating sometimes.
You just have to say like I don't speak Thai or whatever.
Yeah, that's my go-to phrase is sorry, I don't speak Thai. I'm not Thai.
Yeah.
You're Korean, right?
Yes. Yeah, Korean.
Cool. Well, let's do another Facebook question. I think we actually covered. Well, we kind of covered Jeff Mulvihill's question. Are timpani auditions in Asia as competitive as they are in the U.S.? We definitely said they are different. Do you think they're as competitive?
I would say so. I mean, again, different areas of Asia are definitely have their own procedures and protocols. Southeast Asia, where I am, there aren't a whole lot of orchestras in Southeast Asia. There are some. I mean, you can even consider like Hong Kong and Macau, like grouped into Southeast Asia, but that's pretty much Asia. You know, we have the Singapore Symphony, we have the Thailand Philharmonic, we have the Bangkok Symphony. There's a couple, the Malaysia Philharmonic. You know, but there's only a handful of orchestras, and I think that from what I understand, those processes for audition are very different from orchestra to orchestra, even within Southeast Asia, and then let alone in Japan, Korea, and China. I think the competition level is as high, if not more intense, than it is in America. I mean, because there are, you know, if you're Japanese, you kind of want a job in Japan, you know, so all those orchestras are also looking for Japanese players, and there's just not that many orchestras not per capita, I don't know what the word is, you know what I mean, we have a lot of orchestras in America, we have a lot of people. The job scarcity is very, very competitive, but there they have a lot of people, and they also have less orchestras, so the competition level is definitely high.
Do you think from your perspective, do you think because there's less orchestras, those orchestras are in better shape than a lot of ours here?
That's hard to generalize. I'm not exactly sure. I can say that our orchestra, for example, is government funded partially. So unlike orchestras in America that are a lot of private donors and things like that, a lot of our chunk, like our salary, for example, could be classified under government supported. So our salary is not dependent on concert attendance or touring or something like that, which in turn, I mean, you could say it as it makes us easily successful, but you know, it makes us more sustainable, I guess, because we don't have to worry about funding and things like that. We obviously do have to worry about funding, but not in the sense that American orchestras do, when you hear American orchestras folding or going under because of lack of funds.
Okay, that makes sense to me, because you know, when you participate in that conversation of like, oh, the orchestra's here, you know, we're not funded and society doesn't care about art, and actually when I did a little digging, because likewise you could look at higher education too, people say like, well, look, they're not giving money to schools the way they used to, and they're not giving money to orchestras the way they used to. It's like, no, actually they're giving more money. There are just more orchestras and more universities. There's a university in every little town and a little college everywhere. So actually they're giving much more money to the states. It's just spread much, much thinner, because every little city has a college and every little city has an orchestra.
And I don't know the numbers exactly, but those small orchestras take a lot of money to stay afloat. Even the tiniest of tiny community orchestras have a whole lot of funds that they need covered. Yeah.
I mean, I believe in everyone having the opportunity to experience music and to play music, but I just think that if we pooled our resources a little bit more, we could put more money into fewer institutions and accomplish more, I think. You know, I've identified that as a huge problem since starting a career in academia. You know, even Missouri, there are just so many schools, and I think bringing education to people is great, but we also have cars and buses to bring the people to those institutions, and where institutions are suffering, you know.
I think it's a way tricky conversation, because, and we used to have it all the time because we worked at a very small university, and on one hand you could say, man, wow, look at this, this bigger university should just kind of absorb this other one, and but on the other hand, you look at some of the students and you think, well, this student wouldn't have gotten into that one, and now they have an opportunity to like do what they want to do and pursue the thing they love and take a shot at, like, you know, being a musician, and they couldn't have done that at the, you know, bigger place. And it's like, man, it's I don't know.
Right, and sometimes smaller schools are better working environments for some students, and they offer different things than universities. Yeah, it's a very tricky conversation. You're right.
Yeah, and that's one where I try to just pretend like I don't speak the language. I just go school. What is this? I don't know, and then I get out of it and I can't do any wrong.
I have to use the restroom.
Sure.
I have a question, Kyle, about like if you had any kind of apprehension about auditioning for a job overseas and then getting it, and then you're like, shoot, I now have to move to a different continent. Was any part of you really nervous about that, or?
Oh yeah, of course. Well, maybe this is a good chance to talk about how Megan and I connected before this job, and then segue into that question. So the transition to this Thailand job was very quick. I mean, extremely quick. So basically, when I finished school at Michigan, I was looking for jobs. You know, I was just like applying for everything. I just needed to get a job. And so, actually, before I applied to that job in Jordan, I applied to a job in Palestine too, and I can't remember for the life of me what that school was, but I ended up
It was in
not.
Ramallah, right? I think there was something. There's
I
a
think
little
so. I
school
mean,
in
and it
Ramallah.
wasn't a university of any kind. It was just like a
School.
teacher position,
Yeah.
you know. But that was kind of like my like I can do this. Like I hadn't applied for very many jobs straight out of school, but when I got some positive feedback from that position, I was like, yeah, you know, I can do this interview thing. I can apply for jobs. So I just like sent out a bunch of stuff, and this was May June of 2012. And so then I eventually applied for your position in Jordan. I can't remember exactly where I saw it listed, but I ended up sending stuff in there, and I actually didn't even know if you were. I didn't know. I don't remember if I knew that you were there or not. I honestly don't remember that piece of the puzzle. But you know, it sounded like such an interesting situation. It sounded like such a once in a lifetime opportunity, especially for someone, you know, that's fresh out of school, motivated, has lots of different interests, and you know, I wanted to travel. I wanted to see the world, and I was financially and you know, I was not connected too closely to anything in America, so it was like the perfect time to explore that possibility. And I think that's something that a lot of students don't even doesn't even cross their mind, is that there are so many other jobs out there besides in America. But America's comfortable. You know, this is where we feel at home. We know this situation. We know the climate of the music industry a little bit in this country. It's very different in every other country. So I applied for this job in Jordan, and basically I ended up getting it. And Megan and I had a lot of conversations over the next couple weeks just about the job. It was the position was teaching at the conservatory there, but also playing in the Amman Symphony, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then shortly before I was going to go over there, the more and more financial troubles started happening with the orchestra, and they decided that they weren't going to continue. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that was one of the things that I was like, I really don't know if I want to go over there just to teach there. I loved the idea of having that package deal, you know, of like being able to play and teach equally.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's one of those things that we don't usually. I mean, if you're very fortunate in America, you have that, but most people don't have that. You know, you have kind of like the academic side, and you have the academic track, and you have the orchestra track. You know, it doesn't, especially for young players, it hardly ever works out that you get to do both of them. So eventually I decided that I wasn't going to continue, I wasn't going to do the Jordan job. You know, as much as it hurt, as much as I wanted to do it, I decided that I wasn't going to do that. And so then I went back to the drawing board. I was just like, okay, well, I'm in Ann Arbor, I'll continue to gig here, it'll be fine. You know, it wasn't a horrible situation. So then, about this same time, the teacher in Thailand, her name is Wanapa, she decided that she was going to go to America and do a doctorate at University of Iowa with Dan Moore. Okay, and so Wanapa had done a very short study abroad at Florida State with John Parks in 2009, and this is where she met Megan. You know, one of only about 4 or 5 people percussionists that she'd met in the entire country was Megan. And so Wanapa emailed Megan and asked her if she was maybe interested in applying for this job. And at this time, Megan was going back to America, going to finish her DMA at Eastman, and so she wasn't interested in even applying for it or going over there. But she recommended me because she knew that I was, you know, mentally I was ready to leave the country. I was looking for a job. Everything was kind of like perfectly aligned. So she sent her information to me, and I ended up applying for this job. This was probably in late June, early July of 2012. And so basically I went and auditioned, or I sent in my stuff to the school, had a Skype interview, and that night at midnight they called and offered me the job. And so from that point, it was just kind of like a whirlwind of okay, I have to pack up all this stuff in Ann Arbor. I have to move into my parents' basement, and that took about a week.
How well did you sleep that night?
Pretty horribly. I mean, so many thoughts going through your head, right? You have to call, of course, like the first thing you have to call your parents, you have to call your professors, and really I didn't have a lot of time to think it over. You know, they kind of wanted a fast decision. Because again, like I said, their semester starts in June, and this was already July. And so I was moving there. They told me that they wanted me to come there as soon as possible. And you know, that's just kind of it's crazy to pack up your whole life, pack up everything you know. And so I packed up everything, drove from Ann Arbor to Chicago, got my visa, came to St. Louis, had like, I don't know, 2 or 3 days here, then flew out to Thailand. I got to Thailand August 12th, I believe, something like that, August 10th. Yeah, it was an incredibly quick turnaround.
Wow.
Cool.
Yeah, what you said about like America is safe really hits a tone with me. Like I'm from Tennessee, and I have a pretty large family, and everybody tends to stay close.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of my friends are the same, and they're in totally different fields than ours, where they can just get 1 degree and then have a great job for their entire lives if they want, in their hometown if they want.
But you have to be a dentist.
You need more than 1 degree to be a dentist, but
yeah.
But I remember conversations with them where I would talk about, like, I love this player, but he's in France, and I love this player, and she's in Boston, and like I kind of want to go to these places and study there, and I don't know where I'm gonna end up. Who knows? And everybody just thought it was nuts to even like go to New York or go to Massachusetts, and never mind, you know, France. I remember the guy I was dating at the time was just like, "Are you crazy? Why would you do that? Why wouldn't you stay here? Why would you leave America?"
Well,
And it was like,
well, it's a great statement about Kyle's support.
oh yeah.
I mean, we ran into students at the last gig all the time who they would say, well, I really want to go to this other place, but my parents are really pressuring me to like never go far, or
Totally, yeah, we saw that a lot.
Luckily, my parents are both musicians, you know, so they understand that you have to go where the job is. You kind of go where the market takes you. You go wherever the opportunity arises. Yeah. And so they were all for. I mean, they were all for me moving to Jordan. They were all for me moving to Thailand, and they've been out there to visit. They love it. You know, it all worked out very, very well.
Cool.
That's great.
Yeah, and I think another block for students too, in addition to maybe not wanting to leave home or having pressure from parents not wanting you to leave, or family members to not want you to leave home, is thinking, well, I don't have any money. How could I do that? Yeah. And so I constantly try to challenge my students of like, you should go abroad. You should have, try having a different experience. You don't have to live there, but do a study abroad program. Oh, I don't have any money. There are resources. I don't have any money. I did not have any money any of those times like that. You have to look, and there is often funding for those things, or programs such as Fulbright. Mm-hmm. It's an arduous application process, and it's very competitive, but at the same time it's a great way to experience another culture and not have to spend a dime on it. Fulbright, or there are a lot of, even teaching English abroad, there are tons of companies that you can go to set you up with a contract for that. And, even if you're there teaching English, you can still be playing, or, teaching lessons or taking lessons if you're in another country where there's a music you want to learn, or things like that. So yeah, I try to always encourage students that, like, well, it doesn't have to cost money, because none of those times I never paid money for that. There's always some kind of grant or fellowship or something. You just have to look really hard sometimes.
Yeah.
It's very hard, I think, to describe to students what having a different experience does for you, because it sounds like, and you're absolutely right when you say that you should have a different experience, but that sounds like such a weak pitch to them. Like, and I mean, even now, like just the statement itself, and I wish I had more tools to express, like, no, it's going to imprint on you like in such an important way, and it's gonna give you this perspective that's going to let you attack your immediate goals with like a totally different mindset, and it's really important. I just don't know how to really want to convince them of that, but they have a hard time seeing past, well, how is this going to help me with my immediate challenges?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, and I think like taking it out of the context of music too, of explaining that it widens your worldview and it gives you a more global perspective and helps you understand the world and people of the world better.
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah, of course.
Less of
Yeah,
a musical experience, more of like a human experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, even if I wasn't a musician, I can tell you the best part about living in Thailand is the culture, the people, everything about Southeast Asia is just very eye-opening. It's such a unique and different perspective on everything than we have. Religion, money, family, everything is completely different than America.
Food.
Food, yeah.
I saw, Kyle, I saw you have some nice YouTube footage up of you playing some marimba, doing some chamber things.
Mhm.
Do you find you get pigeonholed as a orchestra jock and a timpanist?
No,
Sounds like you're
not in Thailand.
yeah,
I think it's very important since I am teaching at the university to get let the students experience and see all that percussion has to offer because the musical climate in Thailand is slightly narrow-minded and in terms of like let's see uh, students students feeling comfortable with branching out. Okay, so you get a student who's kind of like into marimba, they kind of stay with it for the next like as long as they can without trying to experience anything else. And so yeah, you definitely want to give them as many exposures to things. But in Thailand, you don't have the same exposure that you do in America to things. Yes, orchestra and drum corps and wind ensemble, things like that, but not a whole lot of solo rep or chamber music rep or things like that. So yeah, as a player, I try to do a steady like faculty recital every semester. Yeah, they see me playing orchestra, but I also try to bring in people and get them experiences that they've never had before.
cool. Yeah. Well, that's great. I mean, and I feel like that's how it should be. And it seems like every, orchestra guy we've interviewed on the show thus far has had all these other amazing interests. Like
Yeah.
Tom Sherwood has this. I overlaid video of him like interacting with a robot. On this cool experimental new music concert, and yeah, they all just had like something else, and yeah, it's just great. It's just more evidence that perspective that people have. Of like, oh yeah, the way you win the job is to like practice your excerpts and only your excerpts. It's like more evidence that that's wrong,
I think most the 21st century orchestra musician, especially percussionist, has so many other influences, so many other interests, and they wouldn't be happy just playing, strictly orchestra things. I firmly believe that the guys that are winning jobs now that are successful, they've had enough of a well-rounded education and experience enough things that they have other influences, even if it's not apparent on the surface.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Hey, Megan, tell us a little bit about this history of the orchestra there in Jordan.
Yeah, sure. So this is a good episode to tell this story, I think, since Kyle's here. But he mentioned that the job when he was applying for the position and was offered the position, it started to fall through a little bit. And basically, what was happening is, the way that I got this job, first of all, was also through kind of random connections. There was an application process, but it was also like a really kind of weird circumstance. So I met Tim Brocious, was the percussionist teaching there before I was, and when I was a master's student at Florida State, Tim had at one point studied with John Parks at another school at Samford University and knew him. And Tim was looking to take a sabbatical or take a leave of absence just for the summer semester. And he contacted Dr. Parks and said, hey, I'm looking for a sub for the summer session over here. Do you have any grad students who would be interested? And a year or two before that, I had actually met Tim at a grad audition at the Hart School of Music where he was doing his DMA. And so that kind of weird coincidence brought us together, and I ended up going over there for the summer to sub and loved it. But it was the summer before I had already taken grad school audition, so I already knew I was going to Eastman to start a DMA degree. And so I just stayed there for the summer, and then Tim went back. Then at the end of that year, he decided to take a full year sabbatical so he could come back and finish his degree. And we kind of checked in at that point, and I was like, actually, I think let me look into it, but I really want to experience more of this. I would love to do this for a year rather than just 3 months. If it's at all possible, I would love to do that sabbatical for you. Let me check with my school. And the school was very willing to work with me on it. They let me take a leave of absence, keep my assistantship. I was very fortunate for that. So I went over for the year, and I loved it when I was there, and I was considering even staying longer. But that during the year that I was there, the orchestra stopped receiving funding from the city. And this is something I found really interesting. The orchestra was not funded by the country of Jordan, but rather by the city, the municipality of Amman. And the mayor position kept changing. So they would have one mayor, and that mayor might last a year, and then one lasted 1 month, one lasted 6 months. It wasn't very stable. So our funding kind of, even though we had a contract to run this orchestra, the funding did waver depending on if the mayor supported music or not. So we were just in a really bad spell here when I got there, and the mayor did not support music, and we were not receiving payment from the city. So the orchestra started going down really fast, and we, kind of stopped receiving payment, or it would be late, and then it would be a little later and a little later. So it was not a good situation, and it got so bad that eventually they decided they had to close the orchestra. So that's when, at the same time, we were trying to hire another person, but things were still going downhill. We knew that the conservatory would be fine because there would always be students, and even though it was connected to the orchestra, it was not dependent on the orchestra. So basically my position turned it from a full-time position to a part-time position, and that is difficult for a foreigner coming in because you're not able to work. We don't have a work visa, so you would need to be employed full-time by the conservatory and orchestra, and you couldn't really teach lessons on the side and things like that. So it would make it really hard for a foreigner to make it work. So that's kind of what happened there. But I ended up going back a year later because I was doing a degree in ethnomusicology and doing research on the closing of this orchestra, and I learned a lot in that process about a lot of things. And basically what I did was I wrote a grant, and I was able to get a plane ticket to go back and do research in Jordan the following year. So I contacted everyone who is still living in Jordan from the orchestra a year later. And so I asked them questions like, are you still involved with music? Are you teaching? Are you still playing? If so, where are you playing? Because something I haven't mentioned yet is that different from our conversation before, where there are a lot of small orchestras maybe in your region, Kyle, and there are many, 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 many orchestras here in the United States, whether full or part-time. There's only one orchestra in Jordan, one classical music orchestra. So these musicians couldn't go other places to play. And Jordan is made up of a very large percentage of Jordan is refugees. So and a lot of them Palestinian. So Palestinians don't have a lot of choice of other countries they can move to. And so, yeah, this was it for a lot of people, for Talene, who was playing the oboe, she cannot go play the oboe in another orchestra. What is she doing, So I got a lot of varied response from people, and kind of ended up, my thesis was telling the story of the orchestra through the musician's eyes and through the orchestra kind of as a place of refuge, in addition to the country of Jordan being a place of refuge. And so if anyone wants to read it, send me an email or contact us on the YouTube page, and I'll send you a copy of that thesis.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, we don't in America we don't usually get deep into the social context of like orchestras, like the social relationship within orchestras. I'm sure there are some, but in other countries, yeah, it's much more on the surface and out in front than it would be. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see this in some Southeast Asian orchestras as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's interesting to see that, like you were talking about, the different time melodies that are arranged, in a contemporary style. We played a lot of traditional Arabic music as well, arranged for the classical orchestra. So I think even though it's a classical symphony orchestra and we play masterworks, it's the repertoire is completely different than what you would hear in an American
Yeah.
orchestra.
Yeah, the reason, sorry, I didn't even explain this. The reason that they do these arrangements of time melodies, because classical music is such in the infant stages of development in Southeast Asia and Thailand, they use it to attract a broader Thai audience. So something that Thai people can relate to, something that will kind of get them in the door. Yeah, we always have classical concerti and masterworks on the same programs as well, but that initial Thai piece begins every concert. So that's kind of like what they hear first, and that's usually what the normal people that have no musical background at all, that's usually what they remember.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that was the exact same reason for us of why programming that way. And I think we made a very clear effort to not just appeal to the upper class, to not just bring in people who are coming because it's the social thing to do and it's this high class elite concert that you should attend, because people weren't coming because they enjoyed classical music, because there's not. We definitely expats would come, but for Jordanians, they didn't grow up with this music in music class in school, for example. So it's a new thing. It's not something they've been hearing forever. So why would they come to a live concert of it?
Yeah.
So you have to be very creative in how to bring people in and how to educate people about that music. And there's also the question of why educate people. And from my perspective, well, it's beautiful music, and a lot of people enjoy it. But also the musicians that were in our orchestra, not the foreign musicians, but the Jordanians who were in the orchestra, had the opportunity often to travel. They were a part of the Palestinian Youth Orchestra as well, or they were part of the East-West Divan Orchestra organized by Berenbaum, and going to Germany. So they all had a lot of experiences to travel and were able to get visas that way to travel to countries that they couldn't travel to before. So for me, that was the biggest reason.
I bet more people would come to our percussion ensemble concerts if we said we will play that drum fill from the Beach Boys Wipe Out.
Seriously. Seriously, we will play more cowbell.
Right, we will play the famous more cowbell.
We will play all of these things.
Hey, Megan, you just mentioned educating the audiences, and I just want to say our ensemble concert is tomorrow night, and on the last one, which was only my second concert here at JMU, we did instead of like detailed program notes, what I've had my students do is do little PowerPoint presentations on some of the pieces.
Cool.
But of course, I'm like helping them very, very closely with. I'm like reading from a script, just like almost sort of like we do on the show, like report on the piece. And so if I've got like a big set change or something, have like the screen comes down and it shoots up and there's sound playback and everything. And so my student Chris, who's a composition major here, he will do in C and Nagoya marimbas tomorrow night as like
cool.
program notes, and I think it's really cool. Like I think I'm gonna stick with it. I'm gonna try to do that every time.
Can I steal that idea?
Yeah.
But I think everybody really enjoyed it. Like it was at the last concert, it was interesting because like the seasoned faculty members thought that was interesting and cool, and then the students thought it was cool, so it's a.
It helps them to be more invested in the concert too, and in the programming. They get the big picture a little bit more rather than just I'm playing on this piece and this piece, and that's it.
Yeah. Well, and I think the big trick is the content. There's certain pieces that would just be hard to do that with. Like I think I had a lot of interesting stuff to say about clapping music, and there's a lot of materials. The internet's just dripping with cool videos and so much eye candy explaining how that piece works. Yeah. So it was an easy one to do. The place it would go wrong, I think, is when they do the traditional thing. So we're playing this piece, and in it you'll hear vibraphone.
The vibraphone was created in
the vibraphone, typically a jazz instrument, was like it would just turn into bullshit so fast, So I'm hoping there's always a piece on the concert I can do that with, But
that's really cool.
Yeah. It worked out well. Let's see if there's another cool question. Yeah, I kind of like this one.
Okay.
Will Marinelli asks, "What's the most difficult aspect behind the scenes at your jobs there in Thailand?"
Oh, behind the scenes.
Yeah.
I mean, there are so many. As great as this job is, everything that's benefit of it, there are equal amounts of challenges, just culturally, gear-wise. I mean, any possible problem that you could run into, I've run into. You know, but I think that what makes this job work is that it takes a certain kind of teacher to teach internationally, especially in a country that's not your own native language, you know, a culture that's completely foreign to yours. You have to be very open-minded, and you have to go into it knowing that you have to make compromises in every element of your job. You know, so one of the things is definitely compromise on what I think is good. What I think is good and what I think is necessary is not always what's going to be good and necessary for the Thai administration at our university. Things like that. Probably the hardest thing, and actually this is not specific to Thailand. You know, this is specific to orchestral musicians, is working with difficult conductors or on ideal situations, gear situations, personnel. You know, but mostly conductors. Oh man, I have run into some horrible conductors in the past couple of years.
You know, we talked about the tenured players. I mean, I was actually watching some video of your orchestra, and there was some conductor. You know, it's amazing. Like, it's like, how can you be that unexcited about? I remember looking up one of the scherzo from Shostakovich 8, which I think is like really exciting.
Yeah.
And there's videos out there, conductor like it's the coolest music ever, and they just like don't care. Get the hell out the door, man! If you don't
There are
care,
50 other people that would be there caring.
we have those problems. We have over-energetic conductors that are not good conductors. We have under musical conductors that are probably fine technicians, you know. But the biggest thing for me is that since we don't have unions, we don't have players unions, we don't have musicians unions, we don't have tenure, you know. The guest conductors that come in here sometimes are just ruthless, and they know that we can't do anything about it. You know, they know it's not America, they know it's not Europe, and they're just brutally aggressive with the musicians, to a point where people walk out, people will leave. I mean, especially, again, this is kind of like that give and take, and definitely a difference of culture. You know, like you put all of these musicians in Thailand, okay? So you have people from Europe, people from America, Thai, and all of our cultures are very different. And then you put somebody in front of them that has this very aggressive personality, and everybody reacts differently to it. Everybody kind of has their own, you know, place that they go to, you know, feel comfortable. But you know, with the Thai musicians, they kind of just let it go, take it. It's just, you know, it is what it is. You know, this guy or this woman, you know, they have their own personality. It's fine. It is what it is. They'll be gone. You know, the Americans are much more like, you know, we would never stand for this in our country. We would never have this. You know, how can you? Yeah, and everybody, you know, kind of collides. And so that has been very interesting to witness on multiple occasions.
Wow. Yeah.
And does your director take feedback about that? And, you know.
No, not really.
Yeah. Well, and at least in Jordan, I know that a lot of times we didn't really have a decision about who was coming in. And I mean we, as in like the orchestra, even the director and the artistic director of the orchestra, because a lot of times it would be connections through the embassy, and they say, you know, okay, the embassy of the Netherlands is bringing in this person. And you're like, okay, here we go.
Yeah, we definitely have situations like that too. Yeah,
and you're playing this rep,
uncontrollable.
you know, so a lot of times our artistic director doesn't even have a say in that.
Yeah.
Well, okay, the text feed is like exploding with
I want to know what your favorite Thai food is. Can you explain it in great detail?
Okay. So, I love Thai food. Most Thai food, you know, I love spicy things. Any soup that's going to be incredibly spicy, I'm all for it. Yeah. So like the basic things that you get in Thai restaurants in America, like pad Thai. Yeah, we have pad Thai. It's not too common that people eat it regularly.
Uh-huh.
Let's see here. My favorite thing is probably like the whole fish that you can do, either fried or like kind of
That's hard.
steamed, like just whole fish, like on the bone, everything, eyes and all.
Yeah, that's hard.
Oh,
I've done that.
so it's like
I've done
giving you
that.
the stink eye the whole time?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
head there and yeah.
I love
Uh-huh.
salmon head. Salmon head's like my thing.
My Asian friends will eat the head.
Yeah.
I
It's a
can't.
delicacy, right? Or the fish brain is the delicacy?
Well, I don't
You gotta
know.
suck out the brain.
Yeah, I mean you pick around it. I don't eat the. I don't even know if they have a big enough brain. I don't know, but yeah, I like.
In Costa Rica, they told us that the fish brain was a delicacy.
Okay.
It's a logistical thing for me. I had a whole fish
Yeah.
in Croatia actually, and just like okay, I keep getting bones. I keep getting
Yep.
bones. This
Yeah.
is hard. You know, it was just actually hard to do because it was baked, so everything was like really delicate and just kind of came apart. So the bones came with it, and it was just like I'm not grossed out or anything. It's just difficult to eat.
Mhm.
But while we're on this topic, let me tell you my new recently found not favorite thing in Thai food cuisine. So, I have a Thai girlfriend, and a lot of the times we go to restaurants that I normally wouldn't go to by myself because the menu's all in Thai. So, like when I go out with her, we go to strictly Thai restaurants a lot of the times, and we went to this place where she asked, "Do you want to try something interesting or something like normal, like we always get?" And I was like, "Of course I want to try something interesting." So I was like, "Okay." So she orders something, comes, it's a soup, and she has me
Uh-oh.
try it first. I try it. Tastes normal. It tastes fine. It's like a mushroom-based soup.
Uh-oh.
The soup is ant larva soup.
Yeah.
White ant larva. Like, yeah.
That's a
Incredible.
no-go.
You know
That's
what?
weird.
I've been to a handful of different countries, and I don't have a problem when when you order a coffee and they give you espresso. I just say, can I get an Americano?
Yeah.
I'm just not embarrassed or anything. It's like I just want to enjoy what I like, and or not afraid to just let them know what I don't know, and
Mhm.
but yeah, larva-based ants. Yeah.
There was, so you have this, like when I look at it closer, you see like this little ant like flayed out of this white bubble. I'm like, oh my god.
Oh,
It's gnarly.
yeah, that's probably my greatest anxiety about travel, like not losing my passport, but like what am I gonna eat? Because I'm
Oh,
pescatarian and I have a few
Ah.
allergies, and so it's just like
Well,
Yeah.
pescatarians, I mean, Thailand and Southeast Asia, I mean, the fish is amazing. I mean,
Yeah.
like, you can get so many good things here. Uh, yeah, I mean, food-wise, it's a dream come true. You know, I love to eat. I love to try new things, and there's always something new to try.
Hey,
So I have have a little bit more information on fish brains.
Sure.
There's a YouTube video called "How to Eat Fish Brain,"
Okay.
and the description says the video shows you how to dismantle the fish head and eat the fish brain. The fish eyes are soft and nice to eat too. Some Chinese like to eat animal brains and consider them a delicacy. In Singapore, eating curry fish head is a favorite pastime, and this is an expensive dish served to important guests.
Cool. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Hey, give me 1 second. Sorry, my computer's about to die. I need to plug in the battery really quickly.
Oh yeah, sure.
While he's doing that, before we say goodbye, I also have an article here about the 10 most daring food delicacies in the world.
Yeah, that's
I'm going to list them real quick. Here we go. Number 1. How about holler if you've eaten this? Number 1, century egg, China. Number 2, fugu from Japan. Number 3, balut from the Philippines. Number 4, haggis from Scotland. Sorry, this doesn't make any sense without me describing it.
oh,
Number 5,
haggis. We've had haggis.
han from Vietnam. Really?
Mhm.
Haggis is pretty easy to eat, I think.
6, suckling pig from Asia, Europe, and the U.S. 7, Hockerel from Iceland, which is actually fermented shark, and I have had that. That's really gross. Number 8,
Yeah.
bird's
They like
nest
bury
soup.
it for a few days, right?
Yeah,
and then-
yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Number 9, fried alligator from the U.S. Definitely had that. And number 10, fried brain sandwich, Midwestern United States. Deep fried calf brain.
Calf brain? That's terrible.
Still,
What do they call that? Sweetbreads, right?
it's still all better for you than a McDonald's. Hey, so we had a long drive, and we were hungry, and we don't, we're not one of those people that are like, oh, we're too good for fast food, but we definitely don't eat fast food. We just generally don't like it. But we will like stop when we're on a drive or whatever. We stopped at McDonald's, and I got a sandwich, some fries, and a small shake, and I had a cough afterwards for an hour or so. Yeah.
He had like 4 bites and just started
It
coughing.
gave me a cough. Yeah, it was very, very interesting. I didn't feel bad or anything. I just had a weird cough. It's like, how did McDonald's give me a cough? Hey, to wrap up, I wonder, would you just say some quick words of wisdom to any young people out there that want to land a gig like you have and are about to enter the audition circuit, and any words of advice or words of caution or just words of wisdom?
Let's see. I never thought that I would leave the country to work. It never even occurred to me in school. So, you can never be too sure. Keep your options open. Look at everything. That being said, the quirky little connection that Megan and I had a long time ago that kind of segued into this job, I think, is a very unique and cool thing. Not unique. I mean, I think it happens all the time. But you never know the people that you're going to meet, whether they're percussionists or non-percussionists, how they're going to impact the rest of your career. Let's see here. What else? I think that now, especially with percussion, you can't spread yourself too thin. Like you were saying, that orchestra musician is a thing of the past. You have to have so many different areas of interest, so many different skills and talents, and you have to be a good teacher. You have to be a good player. You have to be a good chamber musician. You have to be everything. You can't be single-track percussionist anymore. It doesn't really work like that.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful. Hey, well, thanks so much to everyone, and the questions we didn't get to, Alan Lang, Dustin Wardard, and always Ted Jackson, thanks very much for you guys' questions, and yeah, please keep them coming. And man, Kyle, great to meet you, and thanks so much for
Casey, we actually met a long time ago. Oddly.
Oh, damn it! Yeah.
No, right. I know. I was gonna tell you this before we started. When I finished at Indiana, I was looking at going to Rice for like a postgrad degree or something. And you were, maybe it wasn't when I finished Indiana. You were doing studies at Rice, and I came down there. Me and Chris it was after undergrad. Me and Chris Slagle from Eastman came down at the same time.
Oh, wow.
And you were preparing one of your concerti with the orchestra. And I remember talking to you then for this was like 2008, I think.
Yeah, that's
really, really long time ago.
Wow, cool, good memory. That's really impressive. Well, that's really cool, man. Again, small world all around. And man, Kyle, thanks so much for chatting with us. And
thanks so much for having me. This has been a blast. Really fun.
Awesome.
Cool. Yeah, great episode. Really great episode. I wonder, maybe Ben not being here made it really made it really special. Maybe that'll be the more permanent format.
We'll see if he listens and comes back at that.
Yeah, miss you, buddy. We'll see you at home. All right.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Yep. Hey,
Thanks,
you're
have a good concert.
welcome.
Bye,
yeah,
Megan.
Safe travel.
Yeah, safe travel. See you guys.